That theme music means it's time for our weekly confab with Ted Dabrowski, president of wirepoints.org, all things Illinois policy related, and a good piece over at wirepoints.org that finds that Nickelodeon has nothing on the Chicago public school system when it comes to predation on young people. Sexual abuse and misconduct cases. 2023, there were 446 detailed in the Inspector General's 2024 report, ranging from misconduct and sexual harassment to non-sexual conduct that raises the appearance of impropriety or possible grooming concerns. That's a quote from the IG's report. For example, profiled over at Wirepoints. Security guard sexually abused a 16-year-old student for approximately 5 months. In his capacity as a security guard, he pulled the student out of class to have sex in various locations in the school, such as storage rooms and janitorial closets. He also sexually assaulted the student in his car and his home.
Is he in jail?
Don't know the status.
Of course not.
Another case, an employee of a vendor after-school program sexually assaulted an elementary student at the student's school in multiple locations between 2014 and 2017 when the student was 7 to 10 years old.
Oh, God. Poor thing.
The student disclosed 3 separate incidences, and, it's all of a sexual nature. I won't get into the details of it. The abuse took place in the school's gym and cafeteria. It's disturbing. This is a pedophile, obviously. Where's the outcry? Who's got this story other than Wirepoints? Where's the I team investigating?
Chuck Gowdy.
What about here we go again. Where are those do-gooding trial lawyers who protect the little people against the big corporations, government? I thought no, not CPS. Parents. Father Flager, the wonderful civic elders. How about the Panjan drums at the City Club or the Economic Club? Anybody in C-suite Chicago? No?
Well,
just Wirepoints?
I do know one thing. If they're accused of sexual abuse or sexual assault, they still get paid, Dan, while they're at home awaiting their trial because the CTU worked that into their contract.
Of course.
And some should be in jail, from what I've been reading, thanks to Wirepoints, because if they did that out on the street or if they were somewhere else, say it even like at a gym you rent and they molested a 7 to 10-year-old, or a 7-year-old or a 10-year-old, whatever, it doesn't matter, they molested them, they'd be in jail.
Elementary school teacher sexually assaulted a 12-year-old child in Indiana, child between the ages of 12 to 16 in Illinois, and was arrested in Indiana, sentenced to 50 years in prison. Do you know about that case? No, of course not. Why?
Because teachers are supposed to be our heroes.
Well, it's more than that. It's because institutions are to be protected, and CPS is to be protected at all costs. So now, for example, the Catholic Church, and I don't believe the church should be protected or CPS should be protected. Nobody committing this kind of misconduct should be protected. But you'll take notice of who is and who isn't because it speaks to an agenda. What else could it possibly be? Ted, thanks for joining us as always. Appreciate it.
Morning, Dan. Good morning, Amy.
Have you gotten a lot of inquiries from the Chicago Press Corps, the civic institutions, the professional associations?
You're right.
About the Chicagoland Chamber of Commerce, teachers union, all the stakeholders in CPS? A lot of conversation about this happening now because of those reports you've done?
Absolutely not. And of course, we just put it out late last night, so they haven't had a chance to review it yet. But
oh, sure,
we did.
You did.
This,
you had a chance to. You had a chance to review the IG's report. They have the same access to the IG's report you do.
Exactly. Well, this thing came out, in January, and it got just a dribble of attention, right, when it came out. And I give some credit to Willie Wilson because a couple of weeks ago he came out and wrote an op-ed. Former candidate for mayor of Chicago, he came out and wrote an op-ed that criticized all this and said, you can't teach kids when sexual abuse is rampant. And so good for him to do that. And it reminded me that I've wanted to to take this stuff, all these cases are lost in a long 130-page report that nobody's going to read. Just bring these cases to life because they're scary. They're plentiful, sadly, and what it tells you is that years after the Chicago Tribune report, when they did that big report called Betrayed back in 2018, CPS got some attention for that. Nothing's really been done. I mean, they've done a couple of things, but when you compare what the Catholic Church has done, and I spent a good bit of time looking at what the Catholic Church did over the whatever it was, quite a few years to block this kind of stuff. It's hard to commit crimes right now in the Catholic Church. Here at CPS, they're still doing it. You know why? Because they don't get caught. It looks to me like it's still a culture that allows this stuff to happen, and that's why you have these stories play out all the time. Not only just sexual abuse cases, but cases where they're flirting with the kids, they're grooming them, they're doing all kinds of stuff. You're talking about young kids, thousands of texts. When you look at the number of teachers that are texting students, you're talking about thousands of texts. It's scary. So they're still allowing this stuff, and like you said, CPS is protected. The unions are protected. The vendors, a lot of this stuff is done by vendors and security guards. And so the jurisdiction kind of falls apart. Who's in charge of these people? They get away with it eventually. It's really sad, and they give a pretty good bit of detail in the Inspector General report of what eventually happens.
Well, I mean, look, the City Club is focused on important things like legalizing prostitution. And so, I mean, this makes perfect sense. So CPS can be a pipeline to the sex worker industry, since they're not teaching kids how to read and do math. They can groom them to be prostitutes at the Gimme Those Hoes, Gimme Dat Brothel, brought to you by Brandon Johnson and J.B. Pritzker and Tony Preckwinkle at some point. So, I mean, that there's, providing career paths, I guess, for CPS students with what's happening here, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, I think the whole cultural case, the moral case, it's so upside down, and we complain a lot about how kids can't read at CPS, but there's something a little bit scarier than kids can't read, and that's when employees are sexually abusing your children, and that should be issue number one, right? If you can't feel safe, if you can't feel protected in the school, then forget it, and it goes back to why CPS should just be totally reconstituted, start over, blast it, create a whole bunch of different schools, go to school choice. There's any one of the options that are available. It needs to be done, because I think this just points at the not just the fiscal corruption, but the moral corruption and moral bankruptcy at CPS.
No, I mean, but if you work at CPS or if you're a vendor or security guard, everybody has to go through this thorough training where you have to sign an agreement. You will not text a student. I mean, unless you know them from, like, you have their number from your neighborhood or from, one of your son's friends, but you cannot text students. That is so taboo. And they know that, but they obviously don't care because they're using texting to groom them and to take advantage of them. But the thing is,
it goes even further than, it's amazing, Amy. It goes further than that. They have cases where teachers are taking, young kids to restaurants and to their homes. And it's just, there it is, all, one after another, and, again, just don't care because they're not going to get caught. They're not going to get busted. It's the same thing. It's like the crime we talked about. You're not going to get busted, so you might as well go for it.
Well, and also, too, hey, Ted, big city living. It's a big school system. There's, what do they lie and say, 325,000 kids? Maybe there's 250, 275, I don't know. But it's a big system. It's talking about hundreds of thousands a kid. There's going to be some bad apples. There's going to be some people who fall through the cracks. There's going to be some, bad actors and bad actions taken. And it's just like violent crime. It's just big city living. Just for the most part, it's not a problem. But you're going to have, in any system, there are going to be some imperfections. That's all.
Yeah, we say the same thing about crime.
Yep.
Same thing. It's just a big city. We're going to have lots of murders and shootings, and just have to roll with it. Stop complaining.
Wait. There's one case where a high school coach sent 757 text messages to a sophomore, an 11th grader, and it included sexually explicit messages and videos of his genitalia. And the Cook County State's Attorney's Office rejected charges. Now, why do you think that is, Ted?
So, and you'll see that in the report where somebody tries to do something, then the charges are rejected. It's a lot of times a jurisdictional fight, whether it's Cook County, Chicago, it's a vendor. The vendor's not a school employee, and next thing you know, look. Here's what the Catholic Church did, and it was really tough. Right? But first thing is they created a one strike and you're out. You certainly don't have that at CPS. They have a website the Catholic Church does, a website that has all the offenders. You can see who they are, you can track them, and if you're a school district somewhere else and you look on that website and you see that guy on the site, you're not going to hire that guy. But we don't have that for CPS, and so there really aren't. We do this training and stuff like that, but it's worthless. It's you got to really hammer on these people and really go after them. And of course you have to do great screening and
that's of course you're gonna train a pedophile to not be a pedophile through some bull jive slide presentation. Of course not. It's on the screening side, and then on the punishment side to make sure that there's a culture of accountability within the system. But I mean that's just a bridge too far. That's too much depth for CPS, and as long as nobody cares, then just steady as she goes. I wanted to get your take on this little spring break trip you took, where you drove from Illinois to Florida to be reminded of what civilization looks like, and what you experienced on the road trip.
Well, I drive to Florida usually every year, go down to the Panhandle. And you can't help but go through Indiana and Tennessee and Kentucky and Alabama on the way there. Yeah. And what you quickly remember is you fill up before you leave, and you pay whatever is $4 a gallon, and then next thing you know you're down in Tennessee spending $3.11 or $3.15 or whatever it is. You're saving oftentimes $1 per gallon when you're on the road, and it tells you, well, what the hell? Why isn't Governor Pritzker and all those people who voted for that Capitol bill that doubled the gas tax, why are they just lambasted for what they did? It's crazy. We have to pay so much more per gallon. And you're talking about very regressive taxes on gasoline. So you're talking about affecting the poor, the working class most. And so in every state you go down, you see how much cheaper it is. And what's amazing is they have paved roads in Tennessee,
right. The roads are better.
and Alabama.
And no tolls.
So it just really ticks you off that they've done this, and it's just such an easy example of how corrupt Illinois is to do that. And you don't get anything additional for your dollar a gallon extra in cost. You don't get anything. You're just funding the corruption that's rampant in Illinois.
Second highest gas taxes in the nation, behind only
For
California.
what? I know for what though.
Second highest gas taxes.
No, I'm saying what are we getting for it?
Oh, yeah, right.
Yeah.
Well, and that's, these other states are warm weather states, so they don't have the wear and tear on the roads. It's funny, Ohio's not a warm weather state. There's a whole list of not warm weather states. Montana, I don't believe, is a warm weather state.
No, it's not.
So when you're second highest in the nation, there's a lot of other cold weather states, including all those that surround you, that give lie to that argument. But again, as you say, regressive tax, lying.
Just real quick, we wrote that simple piece, and and it's been read all over the state. I mean, people really grabbed onto it. It hurts them. You can tell just by the readership of this article, simple article. It ticks people off. Yeah,
it ticks them off just enough to say, Illinois is terrible, I want to leave, and I'll plot my exit, but I won't do anything in the interim. At least that's the suburbanites. Actually, the suburbanites, it's even more. That's where the blinders are on. That's where the self-delusion. Do not pierce my self-delusion. I have to continue to rationalize my existence here, the choices I've made, the life I'm living, and so I don't want to hear anything that would, upset this fictional world I've created in my head about the community in which I live and the state in which I live. I get it. That's why they're so antagonistic with the people who've left. You're in Florida, you're in Tennessee, or you're in Vegas. I had lunch with Jeff Carter yesterday, who left after 30 years and is in Vegas with his family. Guy who was at the Merc and started High Park Angels and all this stuff. Now he's not allowed to comment. Not allowed to comment on Chicago. Get Chicago out your mouth. right? No matter what
And,
you contributed, no matter how much you care, no matter what you see, you cannot prick the bubble that these people live in. There's nothing, because to do that would bring them face to face with the reality they've created, and they just can't bring themselves to admit what they've done and with whom they've done it, can they?
What's fascinating is how many Jeff Carters have left Illinois, and then many of them. I know many of them. These are people who are very successful. Created businesses. Create jobs, and yet most of them have been chased away because.
And the response is what? Good riddance.
Good riddance.
You're the bad guy now because you left, because you're not wallowing in misery and platforming ignorance like I am, at least until I can get out. Really persuasive stuff.
I think the most amazing one for me is, like they talk about Alabama that way. A lot of times when we write about people leaving, we'll get some pushback about, people, go to Alabama, go to Tennessee. It's fascinating the amount of investment, the amount of growth, the amount of opportunity that these states are creating for people. It's phenomenal. You take northern Alabama, and you've got tons of investment. I was in Tennessee for the night again. But they've got so much growth, it might be too much growth. But that's their problem.
How many cranes were in the sky?
How many kids from Chicago schools, like Chicago suburban schools, are going to SEC schools these days because of the heavy recruitment there and the scholarship money that's being offered? Alabama, Miami, Florida, Georgia, all these SEC schools, they're killing it with Midwest out-of-staters from the Midwest coming to their schools because they know they don't have a future in Illinois. So, but hey, take that for what it's worth, and the nattering nabobs of fictional worlds, those that believe they live in Candide or have to believe they live in Candide, and just sort of reflexively attack anybody who points out what Chicago and Chicagoland has actually become. Fine, okay. No problem. Ted Dabrowski, President, Wirepoints, wirepoints.org, all things Illinois policy related. Thanks, Ted.
Thank you, Dan. Thank you, Amy.
Thank you, and glad you had a safe trip and you're back. And he joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.
Connect with Dan and Amy on the AM 560 The Answer mobile app. Just text the word app to 64636 to download the app today.
Hi, Regular Joe with you again with a troubling update. Robin Voss has crossed lines that cannot be ignored. His actions to block legislation preventing the Chinese Communist Party from buying Wisconsin farmland not only disregards our agricultural heritage, but poses a clear and present danger to our state's sovereignty and security. Voss's vice chairmanship on a board with deep ties to a Chinese group intent on influencing American legislators reveals a conflict of interest that cannot stand. Meanwhile, regime puppets on the radio work overtime to mislead the people of Wisconsin, painting a false narrative to protect Voss. But the facts remain, and the truth is clear. With the recent recall effort, the people's voice was strong. Signatures outnumbered Voss's primary votes. It's time to finish what we started. Sign the new petition